All right, so pretty serious face here as we talk about some pretty serious stuff here on This Devoted. So I'll just start with a real serious question first. What's your favorite Thanksgiving part, your meal of the meal? What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish? So hope and pray you have a great Thanksgiving here this week. Sweet potato casserole, anybody? Mashed potatoes and gravy? Green bean casserole? How about the turkey that's left over for a sandwich with mayonnaise? And some people put chips on the sandwich for that extra crunch, right? That has to happen like just a few hours after you've eaten like 7 pounds of turkey, and then you have to have a sandwich, right? 3 hours later. So, all right, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And, those rolls, don't forget those big yeast rolls. Right? So, all right, so we're going to talk about discipline again, and so lighten the mood a little bit. So I had a great question from dear precious friend Melissa Solomon about, so what is the difference between discipline and punishment? Great question. And I don't know if, as long as we are Christians, I think there's some concepts that we just sometimes struggle with. One of those is the fear of the Lord. Right? We still, even after all these years, of walking with the Lord, sometimes it takes a while for us to understand the fear of the Lord is not being scared of the Lord, but the fear of not having the Lord in your life. That's the fear of the Lord, right? This respect. Yes, it's respect and it's awe, but fear of the Lord is really the fear that you don't have him in your life and you can't ever go back, right? So, but this concept of discipline is still a huge one for us to kind of wrestle with, because we hear discipline, we either go to maybe punishment, especially when the writer of Hebrews talks about fathers disciplining their sons. This first thought is, well, I broke a window. I'll tell you a story here in just a moment of one of my least favorite Saturday afternoons as a boy, but then also this sense of with discipline, of training for an athlete, and it's the same word, but it's not, so it's used differently. So we'll get into that here in just a second. As I promised, we'll be here on discipline for a little bit, because it is a huge topic. We may still be here even next week. We'll see. It looks like, in fact, we will be. We're looking at 2 verses, this devoted. It's 7 and 8, Hebrews 12, 7 and 8. As you endure this divine discipline, I like how the NLT says that. The word divine is not specific in the Greek text, but it is implied. So say implied, say specific. So specific means that there's a Greek word for divine. There isn't, but it sure is implied with the definition of discipline, which we'll get to in just a moment. So as you endure this divine discipline, remember that God is treating you as his own children. Whoever heard of a child who is never disciplined by its father? If God doesn't discipline you as he does all his children, it means you are illegitimate and not really his children at all. Oof. All right. So this Saturday morning, I think it was maybe a Saturday afternoon. So my older brother Mike and I've got 2 older brothers, Brad, but Mike and I kind of grew up in that same. The first 3 separated by about 13 years, from the youngest of the first 3 to the oldest, which is Michael of the second 3. So there's 6 of us in the family, but a 13-year gap. So me, my twin sister Pam, and Michael grew up together. So one day we're playing football, tossing football, and So we're like, I'm recounting the story like an I. So Mike had his back to the house, and so first mistake. He's older, he's probably more accurate. We're passing football. I always believed that was the second coming of Lynn Swann or Terry Bradshaw, those Steelers days. Big Steeler fan. 70s, good decade to be a Steelers fan. 4 Super Bowls, baby. And so Mike's passing the ball, I'm catching on, and so I'm thinking, I'm Terry Bradshaw, I'm going up for a long one, and I got every bit of my body weight to this one pass, and sails over. Mike doesn't even try. I just remember Mike does this. Right into the bathroom window, crashing, shattering the bathroom window. My dad comes out and I don't think I get punished for that one. So a little bit later, we thought, we're going to put the football up, He yells at me, right? But I don't get punished, right? So then, a couple hours later, we decided, hey, we're multi-sports. We were a multi-sports family. Basketball, football, baseball. So guess what? We get our gloves, And our baseball, everybody knows where this story's headed. So Mike's got his back to the house again. Short pat. And so I'm like the second coming of Pete Rose, or maybe a famous second baseman or shortstop at the time. I loved baseball at the time. And so I caught that outfielder, right? I catch the pop fly, and I'm gonna throw that runner out at home plate. So, or maybe I was snagging the line drive at shortstop, boom, picking that up and scoop it up. And I remember I was on the run, just like a real baseball player. I'm pick it up, scoop it, and then I'm kind of like leaning and throw it. You know what happened, right? Now in the utility window, crash. 2 windows broke, shattered in less than like an hour. And I didn't get off that easy the second window. So I was punished for that. So what's the difference? Did the punishment, now here, listen, watch the twist, okay? Did the punishment discipline me? Yes. Was I very, very mindful the rest of my life never to throw a football or a baseball near a window? Yes. So it trained me. Somebody say train. But that was discipline. Why? Because I did something. That was punishment. Sorry, that was punishment. Why? Because I did something wrong. This is important. Punishment is always tied to what you did wrong. If you're saved, if you're a Christian, you've been covered in the blood, Isaiah 53 is true. Jesus takes on all punishment. Earlier in Hebrews is true. We've already looked at this one many weeks ago, that all punishment was laid upon Christ. And if all punishment was taken by Christ, how can then God punish us? He can't. He can't punish us. Because the very thing that we're supposed to be punished for is supposed to be gone. Why? Because Jesus took it. See? I still know people who believe that some of the hardships in their lives are punishments from God. I still talk to many people who still believe that their miserable life or their something that's happened in their life, maybe somehow it's happened in their life where there's this consequence that has lingered in their life over years and years and years. Consequences can linger, but the punishment has been taken. Okay, so this can't be punishment, and in fact, that's not the word. All right, I want to make sure I'm clear. Can earlier punishment be used by earthly fathers? We'll look at earthly fathers next week. But can earthly punishment be used to help discipline us? Sure. But that's not the concept of discipline now from the Lord. So as you endure this divine discipline, the Hebrew word is paideia. Paideia. And it means for discipline, instruction, training, education. Listen to this. To properly means instruction that trains someone to full development or even maturity. So this Greek word is literally to help us reach full maturity. It is something that God uses to train us. So for instance, and Melissa's great question was, okay, then can you give me an example of what a discipline would be? You're in a job that you don't like. You're in a job with a horrible boss. You're in a job where the people just aren't very godly. And God's using that job to train you. You may have an affliction, not because God gave you an affliction, but you have an affliction because we live in a very broken world. And as God is healing you somehow, emotionally, physically, mentally, and even spiritually, then somehow in the process of that affliction, not that God gave it to you, but we have it because it's a broken world, can God be working on your faith and disciplining you in that sense where maybe there have been doubts before, or maybe you thought that you could never get sick and still serve God? So is He training you to think different? A lot of the training is for this. It's a different mindset. It changes our thinking. We may be in a hard season, a hard situation. We may be in a season of our lives where, for whatever reason, we're not feeling or sensing or the Lord, but that may be because we've lived our lives with an emotional attachment to God, and God is training us to believe and know that God is with us even if we don't feel the goosebumps. All that makes sense? And there's dozens and dozens and dozens more. But I think what's really important is this word punishment versus discipline. Can our earthly punishment from our parents, from our lives, be used to train us? Discipline, sure. But what God does here in these verses is if you're his child, and this is that love, right? You're my child. Listen to a couple of quotes here. We'll end with a couple of quotes here. This is from Charles Spurgeon. While he will never be arraigned before God's bar of judgment as a criminal and be punished for his guilt, but now he stands in a new relationship, that of a child to his parent. And yes, the son can be disciplined on account of training. So I'll never stand before God's bar of judgment as a criminal. What happens to criminals? They get punished. But now you stand as a child, daughter, son, as a saved person. We stand before God in a whole different way. Can he still discipline us? Sure. But he can never punish us. Okay? Last one. When this attitude is realized, then we understand the direct and blessed connection between discipleship and discipline. So what this author was saying was, we understand that without discipline, we can never be a disciple. Our discipleship grows. Remember the definition of this Greek word. It is to instruction that trains us to reach full development or full maturity. Everywhere throughout Scripture it talks about becoming more mature and growing up and reaching maturity. That doesn't happen without discipline. Okay, so be devoted to receive God's correction and training. That correction and training combines, it's kind of a 1-2 punch. Correction, training. Together, that equals discipline. So be devoted to receiving the correction and the training that is wrapped up in the discipline of God. Amen? Be blessed.